Hello everyone, I am Jonathan Little. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's a hectic day in the world, but we're going to be talking about 3 lessons to crush small stakes tournaments. So let's go ahead and get right to them. In this webinar, we're going to be discussing how tournament poker can be extremely profitable if you study hard and put in the volume. In this webinar, you will learn 3 key lessons to help you crush small stakes tournaments. Also, we'll be discussing some GTO preflop ranges and exploits that you can use to take advantage of the common opponents that you will be playing against. So, lesson number 1 is to defend your big blind often. This is something that I used to do not nearly often enough. I would be way too tight in the big blind. When someone raised, if I didn't have a good hand, I would just fold. And, I was giving away a lot of money. So there are 3 key factors you want to be considering when you are in the big blind. So first is the opponent's range. As your opponent's range gets wider, you need to defend more often because you're going to have more equity due to being against a wider range, right? So if they have more junk in their range, well, you're going to be in okay shape. Next, the raise size. As the raise size gets smaller, you're going to be getting better pot odds. And third, stack depth. As stacks get shorter, you'll realize your equity better, so you should defend wider. This is something that a lot of people don't quite recognize, but when you're shallower stacked, you can just get it all in easier after the flop when you make a decent hand. So let's take a look at 3 similar situations. So here we have 3 different ranges. The first is the big blind versus the low jack. Low jack is middle-ish position. It goes button, cutoff, hijack, low jack. Okay, so this is under the gun, 6-handed or middle-ish position, 10-handed. 40 big blinds deep. Next we have big blind versus the button. Facing a 2.2 big blind, raise 25 big blinds deep, and then big blind versus under the gun against the min raise there with a 15 big blind stack. So as you can see, in all these scenarios, we're defending pretty frequently. The widest spot where we're defending is the big blind versus the button, but that's just because the player on the button should be opening incredibly wide. Okay, so essentially, you want to ask, are you actually defending this wide? And I think you're going to find that a lot of people are generally not defending quite this wide. I see that some of you do have some questions that you are typing in. If you have any questions, know that we will have a question and answer segment at the end of this webinar so that I can answer whatever questions that you all have. Anyway, though, ask yourself, when a player in middle position raises to 2.2 big blinds, are you defending with a hand like 8-6 offsuit, or King-6 offsuit, or 6-3 suited? And I bet a lot of you are not, which means you're playing a little bit too tightly. Also, notice this 3-betting strategy for this chart here on the left, big blind versus low jack. You see, this has you 3-betting a decent amount. I mean, this is something I don't even do properly today. I think I play a little bit too tightly in these scenarios when it comes to 3-betting. That said, you probably should be 3-betting a decent amount of the time from the big blind. Take a look over here, facing a 2.2 big blind raise, 25 big blinds deep. You see the 3-betting ranges selected include some rather junky hands. I mean, it has you jamming all in, ace-2 offsuit, king-6 suited, etc. Why are we going all in with 25 big blinds and not with 15 big blinds? With 15 big blinds, the hands in red are all in or calls. Whereas with the 25 big blind charts, you have a small 3-bet range in red, an all-in range in green, and a call range in blue. But yes, these charts are available at pokercoaching.com in the tool section. Why is ace-5 suited included in this chart, but not this chart, or not this chart? That's just the way that it works out when you break down the GTO strategy. Turns out that strategies change as stacks get shallower. So we have implementable GTO charts at pokercoaching.com in the tool section. Make sure you check that out. Why is king 7 suited a shove, but not king 8 suited? Because the king 8 suited flops better. To be fair, look, whenever we made these charts, what happened is king 8 suited probably jams, I don't know what it would be, maybe 30% of the time, and calls 70%. Whereas king 7 suited jams 50% and calls 50%. And we took these and we averaged them to make them implementable. You know, these are not perfect GTO charts by any means, but they are relatively close. So again, everyone asking, why are some hands some way and some hands the other way? It's because, like I said, 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, and probably 2s, maybe even 7s, we're all using mixed strategies. And from talking to all of you, you all don't really like mixed strategies. I've ran many polls with all of you, and I asked in various spots, like let's say pocket 6s does say shove 30% of the time. Turns out a lot of people have a hard time shoving 30% of the time. If it says 30%, they'll just shove 0% of the time. But that's a big mistake. So to help give you more definitive decisions, we have made these charts for you that are not perfect GTO charts, but are close enough. So in this scenario, the GTO strategy is to go all in about 7.4% of the time, to call about 70.9% of the time and fold the rest. But the distribution of hands is slightly different than the GTO strategy. What software do we use to make this? The range analyzer that is at pokercoaching.com. All right, so let's take a look at a hand that illustrates this scenario. Here we have under the gun raising to 2 big blinds right here with 4-3 suited. Ask yourself, what do you do in this spot with 15 big blinds? Well, it's an easy call, right? Let's go over here, 15 big blind chart. Big blind versus under the gun, 15 big blinds deep. You see 4-3 suited, very easy defend. It's definitely in the chart. You know, some of the hands that are on the cusp of the chart, like let's say 7-4 suited, 6-3 suited, Jack 6 offsuit, 10-6 offsuit. Those are all very close, and you can probably go either way in reality. But the hands that are just like very clearly in the chart, like 8-5 suited or Queen 8 offsuit, you just cannot fold unless you're really trying to exploit your opponent because they are way too nitty. So this is a situation where we have a pretty easy call. Then we get a pair on the flop, we check, opponent bets, and now we are just going to be all in. At this point, when you start to get shallow stacked, we're going to discuss this in a minute. This is one of the most powerful plays you can have, where we are just check jamming with our hands that have plenty of equity. Should we even be looking at GTO charts versus the population that doesn't open GTO ranges? They certainly are a good starting point. And also, that's why I said you have to make sure you pay attention to your opponents, right? If your opponent raises literally aces, kings, and queens only under the gun, well, then you need to be way tighter, right? You have to use a little bit of common sense when you're playing poker. We're not trying to say, follow these charts blindly and never deviate from them. That's not what we're trying to do, so please don't act like that. Realize you have to use your brain when you're playing poker. Why aren't both the perfect GTO charts and implementable GTO charts provided? Because there are loads and loads and loads and loads of GTO charts. And we're not trying to sit here and be a site that makes money by selling you charts for every single scenario because, again, they're not actually all that applicable. Why are you assuming under the gun will raise small? Won't they usually go big? Well, if they're bad, they'll go big. As your opponents raise bigger, you should defend less often, right? We just said that very clearly right here, right? The raise size matters a lot. Why am I assuming they're min-raising? Because whenever you're playing 15 big blinds deep, they're usually either min-raising or jamming all in. That is what typical reasonable poker looks like. If they were raising bigger, you would defend less, right? Would you tighten up or loosen the GTO strategy in tournament versus a cash game? You should play roughly the same ranges in general. And to be fair, there are like different GTO ranges based on if there's rake or not, or if there are payout implications or not. So lesson number 2, you want to make sure you develop sound short stacked strategies. So with short stacks, you really do have 2 powerful strategies that you can use. And one is 3-bet jamming all in with a decently wide range. And the other is slow playing nutted hands pre-flop. So take a look at these 2 ranges. Here we have cutoff versus low jack facing a 2 big blind raise with 15 big blind stacks. This is a situation where you need to be going all in decently wide. This is about 11 0.6% of hands, you can actually jam even wider than this against most people because most people raise too wide and don't call all ins often enough. Shouldn't under the gun have you crushed on opening ranges? They do, but you're getting such good pot odds in that previous hand that it doesn't matter. You have to realize here, go back to this hand pre-flop. Seems like a lot of people are hung up on this idea. Shouldn't we just fold this because we're going to be in bad shape? Well, we're putting in 1,000 chips to win 5,500. We don't have to realize our equity very often at all to justify calling in this spot. Like, we don't have to flop good hands all that often. So realize that, yeah, that's going to lead to going broke sometimes, but these are all profitable plays. If you make profitable plays over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to crush your opponents. All right. Again, you can find these in the tool section of pokercoaching.com for those who want to delve deeper into this. So, strategy number one, jam wide-ish over raises. If you're in the button versus a cutoff raise, you should be jamming even wider, right? That makes sense because your opponent's raising with a wider range from the later positions. That allows you to jam a little bit wider. All right, that's when you're very shallow, like 15 big blind stacks. You can still jam sometimes for 25 big blinds, though, as we see here. Here we have low jack versus cutoff, so same position, just with a deeper stack. That's the only difference here. So notice in this scenario, now we are having a 3-betting range in red, a calling range in blue, and an all-in range in green. So we do have some all-ins at this stack depth. And then we have some 3-bet smalls. And when you 3-bet small with ace-10, king-9, and ace-6 suited, and queen-9 suited, you're folding if your opponent jams. And when you 3-bet small with kings, queens, and jacks, king-queen suited, ace-queen suited, you are calling it off, right? That makes logical sense. You're going to find that whenever you have a smallish 3-betting range, you want it to be polarized. Polarized 3-betting strategy is very good. That means you're 3-betting with your best hands you can easily call and some hands on the cusp of playability that are, barely profitable to play. And notice that this strategy also allows you to have a decently wide flat calling range. This is something that a lot of people definitely do not do, or if they do it only with very marginal hands. What a lot of people make a mistake of doing here is they 3-bet with like ace-10 and better, and then like pocket 9s and better, and then their calling range is just all junk. But that is a big mistake. You want to make sure your calling range is reasonably strong. And notice here, this strategy actually has aces calling, which is something a lot of people do not do. Let's take a look at this hand that I actually played just recently. Here we have under the gun raise. I have pocket aces in the cutoff, and I like to flat call. When I posted this hand on the internet, I got multiple people asking, why in the world would you flat call? Aren't you afraid of getting outdrawn? But the answer is no, not really, because it's pretty hard to outdraw aces, and I really want to keep my opponents in, because if I 3-bet and he has a marginal hand, he's just going to fold. Now, obviously, again, keep your opponents in mind. If your opponents are the type of player who will always call a 3-bet because they just never fold to 3-bets, well, then you might as well 3-bet. But you have to realize at some point your opponents become reasonably competent, and if they're raising with ace-10 offsuit or just a marginal hand in general, they're going to fold it if I 3-bet or if I go all in, right? So you may say, well, don't they know you have aces when you flat call? No, because look, I'm using this strategy of calling with all sorts of stuff in blue. It keeps my opponents guessing, right? It's very important to keep your opponents guessing so they do not know specifically what you are doing based on your action. So I do flat call, and now both blinds call as well. And this is a situation where now they're like, oh, look, this is horrible. Now you're seeing the flop 4 ways. But this is actually fine because think about the hands the blinds are calling with. It's going to be all sorts of marginal stuff. And, every once in a while they're going to get 2 pair, and I'm going to be unhappy. But quite often they're going to make 1 pair, and I'm going to be in great shape. So we get a very good flop. Goes check, check, under the gun plus 1 bets. Do we need to raise? Well, do we need to protect against anything? If our opponent has a 1 pair hand, he's drawing either 2 or 5 outs. I'm happy to keep him in with 2 or 5 outs. If he has no pair, he's drawing very near dead. So this is a great spot to just call. Also, calling allows the small blind or the big blind to jam with something like a 10 because they think it's the best hand. Seems like a pretty great spot to just call. Notice if this guy bets and I jam here, if the small blind or big blind does have a 10, they're at least going to consider folding. If they have like pocket 8s, they're never going to put money in. If they have 5-4, they're never going to put money in. So notice here, my main goal is not protecting my hand. My main goal is extracting full value with my hand in exchange for getting outdrawn sometimes. So we do call. Turns to 2, the opponent jams. Seems like a very, very easy all-in to me, right? We're certainly not going to fold here. I don't know what the opponent has in this spot, but I really don't like the play with anything. Because if he does have a 10, notice he really wants to bet smaller to keep me in with hands like pocket 7s or ace 4. Not that I have pocket 7s or ace 4 all that often, but let's go over to the chart. Let's see. Notice I actually would have pocket 7s, and I would have ace 4 here, right? And I would definitely call pre-flop, and I would definitely, well, I would probably call the flop with ace 4, maybe pocket 7s. So, these hands are definitely in my range. But when he jams, what am I going to do here? Well, I'm going to call off with a 10 or better, basically, which actually isn't all that great for my opponent. This is going to force me to play pretty well, so quite a poor play, I think. And he does have king 10, so he's going to extract value from queen 10 and jack 10 suited, but when I have the ace 10, he gets crushed. When I have aces, he gets crushed, and that's not going to work out well for the opponent at all. He would much rather check and let me stick around in the pot. So big, big, big mistake. And notice that if I did not slow play this hand pre-flop, like let's say I just jammed it all in over his raise, he certainly would have folded. And even if I 3-bet to like 3 million chips here, we wouldn't have gotten money from the small blinds, and from the small blind and big blind, and given them a chance to make a good hand. And in this scenario, we are in good shape, right? Why are you calling small pocket pairs? Don't you need a bigger stack to set mine? When you're set mining, you need to be getting it roughly 10 to 1 implied odds or better. So when I'm putting in 1 million out of my 12.5 million stack, can I win back at least 10 million total? Well, if I call, let's just show you. And this scenario happens. Notice I already am getting 4.5, well, 3.5 to my 1, right? So now I only need 7 million more chips to go in the pot on average. Notice I can get 11.5 on average whenever I double someone. I'm not going to double someone every time, but it's slightly better than break even. So no, these are certainly acceptable stack sizes to get it all in. I'm not sure why you think you need to be super deep to set mine. And you're actually going to find that when you're super deep, the solvers don't even like playing small pair type hands because you run into set over set too often, and also they play very poorly post flop when you miss. So no, this is fine. You want to be getting at least 10 to 1 implied odds, and here we're getting 12 to 1 or 13 to 1 implied odds. So that's more than 10. All right, lesson number 3. Increase aggression when you can put your opponent's stack at risk. At the beginning of most tournaments, you will naturally have less fold equity, especially if you're playing when there is a rebuy period. And as the tournament continues, or as you're getting closer to the money, many players will tighten up too much. And this allows you to increase your aggression. Think about it, right? A lot of people think, oh, I've been playing poker now for 8 hours. I really don't want to give it away doing something dumb or making a big call. But in reality, that thinking allows you to get out of line and exploit your opponents. And in the early stages of the tournaments, well, now it's almost like you're playing a cash game, right? A lot of people aren't so... they're not thinking so much about the idea that they want to protect their tournament life or anything like that because, well, they haven't really invested much here in terms of time, and very often they can just re-enter. So in the early stages of a tournament, I'm really not doing a ton of giant bluffing unless it's a freeze-out tournament specifically. And in the later or middle stage of the tournament, I'm going to be more inclined to get after it a bit. So let's take a look at an example of this. Here we're playing 40 big blinds deep. I raise it up, big blind calls. Flop comes 7-3-2. The opponent checks. Take a second. Think about what you would do here. Well, I'm definitely going to be betting here frequently using a small size. This is a board that should not connect with either of us too well. So that's going to allow me to bet small and frequently. This is a pretty great hand to bet small and frequently because we have overcards and backdoor flush draw. This is a great spot to go for the bet. He does call. Turns a king and he checks. So now, again, take a second. Ask yourself, should we bet or should we check? Whenever you're going through training videos, by the way, always try to commit to an answer, right? You're going to find that if you play along, that's going to make this way more engaging, and you're going to learn these skills way more than if you're just sitting back having a beer thinking, do whatever you want, right? You want to be committing to bet a specific amount. Mike, very good. Typing in bet 3,500. Dave says bet 3,400, right? So this is good. It's going to help you play along, and playing along is a great idea. It's a good job, Andy, Devin, Chris. Thanks. Good job, Gary. There you go. All right, so in this spot, I think we want to go with a medium-ish size bet because let's think about what we're trying to accomplish here. Our opponent has 19,000 chips remaining. I already know I'm going to be setting up an all-in on the river. So I want to make sure that I bet a size that gets my opponent to call with his marginal hands, but all those marginal hands will fold if I jam the river. So I want to bet a size that keeps my opponent's range decently wide right now, so I don't actually expect to have a ton of fold equity, but I do want to have a lot of fold equity on the river. So if I bet, well, as I do here, 4,000 and the opponent calls, pot's going to go up to about 17,000 and he's going to have about 15,000 left, right? That's going to allow me to then make a roughly pot size river shove, and that's going to get him to fold out stuff like pocket fives or 8-7 a lot of the time. And notice this is exactly how I would play if I had a king, right? I would have bet small on the flop. I would definitely keep betting the turn with it, and I would definitely jam the river with it. So we are going to be at least somewhat balanced in this spot by having some nut hands and some bluffs in our range, and there's not a whole lot our opponent can do about it. Also notice our opponent will fold out a lot of the king high on the flop, so we're really only going to be running into stuff like king jack of clubs, king nine of clubs, stuff like that. Obviously, going to have king x of diamonds, but when that happens, well, we're going to lose, but that is okay. That is a risk you must be willing to take to succeed at poker tournaments. He calls, river's an 8. Obviously, now if he has 8-7, we're going to lose. But when he checks here, this is a very, very great spot to jam. We have pretty much no showdown value. Obviously, if I had a 6-5 suited, that would be a hand that's just a mandatory bluff. But this one, if we have it in our range, is a pretty good spot to go for the bluff. And if you ran this through the range analyzer at pokercoaching.com, you will probably see that we're actually bluffing a little bit too often in this scenario if we are bluffing with this particular hand. And that's okay, because we are getting out of line to exploit the opponents. Again, if you just try to mindlessly follow what a GTO bot tells you to do, you're going to be leaving substantial money on the table against real-world opponents. So please, please, please make sure you're exploiting the mistakes your opponents make. And this is a very, very common mistake players make. They stick around a little bit too much pre-flop, which results in sticking around a little bit too much on the flop and a little bit too much on the turn. And then they fold a lot on the river. So this is a great spot to jam. Seems mandatory to me. And he folds. We win a nice pot. If we were somehow like on the first hand of a tournament, I don't know if I'm necessarily making this play, but especially when you get to the later or middle stages, this becomes a great play to make because people really, really, really want to hang around and ladder up. So we just went over 3 lessons that you can use to crush the small stakes tournaments. And again, lesson number 1 was defend your big blind more often. It seemed like a lot of you are already having concerns about that. Like, are you really defending with 4-3 suited against a min raise? The answer is yes. Lesson number 2, use sound short stack strategies. You want to be 3-bet jamming often, and you want to be slow playing some of your premium hands pre-flop and post-flop. And lesson number 3 is to increase aggression when you can put your opponent's stack at risk. I see some of you are typing in some questions, so we will answer those in just a minute. But first, let me tell you about a sale I have coming up. It is my St. Patrick's Day sale. We've run this sale the last year or two, and you all have always had a lot of fun with it. It ends on March 22nd, so 10 days from now. And the St. Patrick's Day sale has many of my most loved products available for you, including my Cash Game Masterclass. My Cash Game Masterclass has 29 lessons, 29 videos, and all of them now have quizzes at the end to really, really test your skills and be sure that you are mastering what you are learning. We also have all of these cash game courses, including how to beat wild games, how to beat the loose live cash games, right? How to beat 5-10 no limit, the game I used to play all day, every day at Bellagio. We have videos with me reviewing my live at the bike play and other players live at the bike play. These are all available as well at pokercoaching.com/lucky. We also have all of these tournament modules where I go through my deep run at WPT Montreal recently, and also preparing David Einhorn for the $1 million buy-in one-drop tournament. Lots and lots of tournament action. We also have me coaching Nicole Sagal, who was able to play the $25,000 buy-in PokerStars Players Championship last year. He did great on day one and then ran into two tough spots on day two where he played well but just lost the flip. And, such is life, but we did a great job. He took his $25,000 entry, grinded up to $50,000 in equity, but, then tournaments happened. And we also had 13 plus hours where I prepared Blas Zerjau, who turned $5 into 1.3 million on Party Poker about a year and a half ago. I was preparing him for the World Series of Poker. His World Series of Poker went marginally, but then he went to World Series of Poker Europe, had a few deep runs, and just recently he cashed for $300,000 in another online tournament. So he is absolutely crushing it, and that makes me happy. But I realize that all these are individual modules, and I want you to instead have access to all of them. And they are included in Poker Coaching Premium. So here are my coaches at pokercoaching.com. All of these coaches have lots of content on the site, including myself, Matt Affleck, who has been crushing the games for a long time. He does weekly webinars with the Poker Coaching Premium members. We have Alex Fitzgerald, Evan Jarvis, Jonathan Jaffe, who is one of my favorite players. I hired him because I really wanted to learn how to maximally exploit my opponents. Right next to him, we have Michael Acevedo, the GTO expert. He wrote Modern Poker Theory, and it's important to realize that you need to understand how to play fundamentally sound so that you know where to adjust to and exactly where to adjust to instead of just guessing. A lot of people think, I'm going to exploit my opponents, I'm going to guess. But turns out GTO strategies can tell you specifically how to adjust, right? Next, we have Lexi Gavin, Tristan Wade, and our newest coach, Faraz Jaka, who has been absolutely crushing poker recently, and I'm glad to have such an amazing team. So here are the quizzes that we have at Poker Coaching. We have, I believe, 800 quizzes or so, where, kind of like the hands we went through today, you test your skills street by street, and you have to actually commit to an answer. Remember how I had some of you type in the play that you wanted to make? Well, that's what you have to do over and over and over again at Poker Coaching, and then you get feedback from me or my coaches in real time, and the students love the quizzes. They will plug your leaks very quickly, which will allow you to move up in stakes and crush the games. As you can see, we have loads and loads and loads of quizzes, over 800 of them available for you. Also, we have our homework webinars. I actually have one tomorrow. If you sign up for Poker Coaching today, you can go do the homework right now for a webinar that I'm hosting with my students tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be going through a pretty tough spot that actually gave me a bit of trouble, and I show you how to use a strategy that is easily implementable at the table, and also the GTO solution. You all asked about GTO solutions. I show you the GTO solution and show you how I recommend you deviate from that in order to make your strategy actually easily usable at the table. All of these coaches have produced loads of webinars for us. Like here we have some by Matt Affleck, where he's reviewing some of your hand histories. We have Tristan Wade teaching deep stack fundamentals. We have Michael Acevedo, where he gives us many lessons that he's learned from GTO strategy. We have exploitative plays to crush live poker tournaments, exactly what I want to hear from Faraz Jaka. Jonathan Jaffe actually just took, I think, 6th place in the $10,000 buy-in World Poker Tour tournament in December at Bellagio, and he reviewed all of his key hands. And we have a session on when to continuation bet by Lexi Gavin. So here are options for Poker Coaching. We have 1, 2, or 3-year access. Every month, we add 15 new hand quizzes, a new video class, a new live challenge webinar, and 2 coaching webinars. And as you can see, we are offering you for this sale at pokercoaching.com/lucky extreme discounts. On this, if you sign up for 3 years, you get, goodness gracious, I don't know why we're giving you so much off. Looks like about 70% off. $8.31 a month if you sign up for 3 years. Goodness gracious, we're just giving it away. Well, sometimes you're lucky, right? And then for Poker Coaching Premium, over the next year at Poker Coaching Premium, we're going to be adding 300 new hand quizzes, 24 new video classes, 12 live challenge webinars, and 48 new live coaching webinars. That is a load of content. It's actually a lot of content. And realize you don't have to go through every single bit of content. If you sign up to pokercoaching.com, you may have content overload. So find the people you really want to learn from, the people who really resonate with you, and then study what they put out. And you will find that if you do that, you are going to get significantly better at poker. Joan here in the chat says, signed up for a year and you've already got your money's worth. You're going to find that educational poker content is actually very, very, very cheap compared to what you are getting. I mean, even if you play, let's say you play $500 buy-in tournaments, it is well worth it to sign up for a year of poker coaching premium if you're playing a $500 buy-in tournament every week. I mean, it ends up being 1/50th-ish of the buy-ins that you play each year. I mean, you are going to have an extremely higher win rate if you study even just a little bit from the world-class players who are crushing those games. And, well, I have made Poker Coaching Premium to be the training site that I wish I had when I was starting to play poker, and the training site that, well, I use all the time today. And as you see, the St. Patrick's Day sale, $649 for 1 year of Poker Coaching Premium. I can tell you, if you are serious about poker and you want to study, that is what you should be doing. If you don't have a whole lot of time to devote to studying, well, then the Poker Coaching 1-year membership or 3-year membership, if you want a big discount, is the way to go. Either way, all of the courses that I showed earlier, the Cash Game Masterclass, the student prep webinars to get people ready for the World Series of Poker, me reviewing my hands in deep runs at WPTs, all of that is available at Poker Coaching Premium. So if you want access to, well, I'll show you again, literally all of these courses and many, 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 many more are available in Poker Coaching Premium for as long as you are a member. Looking forward to Poker Coaching's homework session tomorrow. Great. Thanks for letting me talk to you about that for a minute. Let me go through some of your questions that you have. In a $15 online tournament every day, there's 2 rebuys during a 90-minute late period. What's the best way to combat fish that play any 2 cards early and seem to hit regularly? Well, so look, whenever you say they seem to hit regularly, realize that already you are approaching this from an I'm unlucky point of view. You're not unlucky. You are not unlucky. You are not unlucky. Most likely, you are just paying off your opponents poorly whenever they make the nuts. You're going to find that in these tournaments, very often your opponents are really loose and really splashy. Maybe you're not raising enough, right? Maybe they're just calling with any 2 cards because you're raising tiny. You could very easily just be using the incorrect raise sizes. Also, whenever they check raise you all in on the river and you have aces, let's say, and the board is whatever, assert any board, 10, 9, 8, 6, 4, well, realize you don't have to pay them. You do not have to pay your opponents off when they check raise you all in on the river. So most likely, you are not playing very well if you are just blindly paying them off every single time. And realize that if you are just playing better hands than your opponents, and they pay you off whenever you make the nuts, and you don't pay them off when they make the nuts, you're going to crush them. You're going to absolutely crush them. Daniel says, should you open up your range in the earlier stages of a tournament? And to what level should you do this? And then change afterwards. I mean, I don't think you need to be playing like absurdly loose or anything like that. I think if you go through the charts at pokercoaching.com in the tool section, they're all there for you. I would suggest you play roughly those charts or follow roughly those charts. Maybe play a little bit looser, but not a whole lot looser. And if you do that, you're going to be playing reasonable pre-flop ranges, which allow you to have at least reasonable post-flop decisions. In small stakes tournaments, you see to be able to get to the bubble with a top 10 stack, but as you try to put people's stack at risk, you're getting worked until you're out. Well, you're probably trying to push around the bubble too much. If a nit raises on the bubble and you re-raise, well, first off, if a nit just raises on the bubble, a tight player raises on the bubble, they probably have a very good hand. And if they have a very good hand, stay out of their way. Sometimes the best play with a big stack on the bubble is to just kind of hang out. Raise the blinds a little bit, continuation bet the flop frequently, but then get out of the way if your opponents stick around. That is an okay strategy. So can I give you a strategy of how to put people at risk without dying in the process? Well, don't risk your whole stack, right? If you're playing, let's say, 25 big blinds deep and someone raises, 3-bet to 6 big blinds instead of 3-betting to all in. Maybe that's something you're doing wrong. I'm not sure. Without you actually giving me hand histories, it's very difficult for me to say very definitively what you're doing. But if you sign up at Poker Coaching Premium, Matt Affleck has webinars very frequently where the students can submit hand histories, and he is happy to go through them for you. If you're running hot, you use your intuition to alter your gameplay and open up your range slightly more. I mean, not really. Realize that just because you've hit the last few hands doesn't mean you're all of a sudden going to start hitting all the other hands. So the question is, am I superstitious? No, I'm not superstitious. Realize you only see good runs looking backwards. If you start thinking, I've won the last 3 hands, so I'm going to win the next 3 hands. So I'm going to play every hand to try to win them all. Well, that's going to lead to ruin because playing bad cards from bad positions results in ruin. Do you want to bet that queen jack hand a little bit bigger to polarize if both you and the opponent are deeper, or is it better to always just jam a third pot on the river? I think you're talking about the queen 10 hand. Let's see what your question is. We bet a little bit bigger if the stacks were deeper. Yeah, I would bet a little bit bigger. In general, as stacks get deeper across the board, you typically want to use bigger bet sizes. What kind of hands are you calling multiple all-ins with? Strong ones. Very, very strong ones. Have you ever thought about having a site with 100% tournament instruction? No, because people played both tournaments and cash games. I initially had mostly tournament content at Poker Coaching Premium, but you all told me very definitively, loud and clear, you wanted cash game content. I'm actually in the process of making a tournament masterclass, though. I made the cash game masterclass. It was wildly profitable and wildly popular. So profitable for me, popular for you, because it was profitable for you as well. And I'm going to be doing the same thing with tournaments where I have a very, very large definitive course. And then I'm actually going to go back and remake the tournament masterclass because I've learned a lot about teaching since I first made that course about a year ago. And, with that tournament masterclass, we've had students who were break even at poker up until then, and they started studying it, and now they're winning $50 an hour or more, just grinding out 2.5 at their local casino. And they've gone from making no money at poker to $50 an hour at poker. Think of the value of Poker Coaching Premium if you go from not being able to win money at poker to now being able to win $100,000 a year at poker if you just sit there and grind hard. It's basically a free roll. Will there be another 30-day challenge? At some point, I think we have a few 7-day challenges coming up, but we'll see. Why do we not segment our offerings in various ways? Because that's a whole lot of work. And also, we don't know exactly what every single person wants. You can segment the offerings, right? You can go through and you can buy individual classes. If you want to go through and buy individual classes, here it is. Right? We've done this for you. If you want exactly the Cash Game Masterclass, there it is. Buy it for $199. You can get it at pokercoaching.com/lucky. Or you can just sign up for Poker Coaching Premium and have access to all of the stuff. Can you include suited connectors with less than 15 big blinds? Sure. What are my thoughts on tournaments with more than 15% rake? Is it still beatable? The opponents need to be particularly bad. That's really it. Your opponents need to be particularly bad for you to be able to beat high rake. How do you get better at recalling charts during tournament play? Pull them up on your phone. Remember, pokercoaching.com is a website. You can pull up the charts directly on your phone and look at them and consult them in-game. And that's going to go a long way to helping you recall them. Now, I'm not saying look at them while you're actually playing the hand, but let's say you're in the cutoff seat with 100 big blinds, then, you pull that up, take a look at it, and you will have a good idea of what you're supposed to do before the action gets to you. This is a site for complete beginners. If you don't know what a deck of cards is and you don't know what beats what, we actually do not have content for that. I do need to make a total beginner course. I did make a video on YouTube, something like Jonathan Little, first time playing poker. If you search that, it'll probably come right up, where I explain the rules of the game and the absolute basics and give some basic tips. So check that out. And then sign up and get to work. What's the best way to find your leaks? Well, you want to be asking, where are you losing money? And you want to see, whenever you're playing tournaments, are you getting your money in poorly every time at the end? Well, maybe you're playing a little bit too loosely or calling off too wide. Are you blinding out? You always have a short stack, right? You want to ask, how am I losing? And an easy way to do that is to ask friends. We have a forum at pokercoaching.com and a Discord chat. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but at pokercoaching.com, you actually have access to backing opportunities and our private Discord chat where you can ask questions to other members. And, the coaches get in there sometimes too and answer questions. Also, we have backing opportunities. Every month, we buy people into live poker tournaments. Usually, $200 to $1,000 buy-in live tournaments to give them a shot to run it up. And it's just, our way of saying thanks to the members. Poker Tracker 4 is a good start. Yeah, if you play online, get Hold'em Manager or Poker Tracker or something like that, and that will keep track of your hands. I'm presuming that was a question for live players. Do you watch body language? Yes, I do. And do you make decisions based on it? Yeah. If you can tell your opponent has the nuts, well, don't bluff. Do you think the coronavirus will rise the number of online players to keep people occupied? Or will it be the worst thing for poker since Black Friday as markets will tumble in the terrible crisis? I mean, I don't think it's going to affect online poker all that much one way or the other. I think if some of the sites are smart, they would try to run, like say they cancel the World Series of Poker, maybe a site runs something during the World Series of Poker because, well, no one's going to be playing in Vegas, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to be someone out here acting like I know the future. I'm certainly not a virologist, but I think it's probably not going to affect online poker all that much one way or the other. That said, if markets crash, we've seen in the past when markets crashed, tournament attendance went way down live. But online poker, I think, has been relatively steady because probably it's very easy to play once you actually have an account. But again, I don't know for sure. Do we send poker coaching patches to our students overseas? We do. Send us an email, support@pokercoaching.com. If you have any questions about billing or the site organization or trying to find a piece of content, email us at support@pokercoaching.com and we will get that to you. If you know your opponent's calling station and will call with ace high, are you still putting him all in? I guess you mean with a bluff. If you know your opponent's going to call with ace high and you have queen high, should you put him all in? Well, we shouldn't have bluffed in the first place if you know he's a calling station. Come on, Michael. This is the spot where imagine I just know my opponent literally never folds. Literally never folds, can't fold anything. Okay, fine. Raise pre-flop, continuation bet the flop tiny to get him to fold out his just like absolute trash, like 8-4 offsuit. And then check it down. Queen high is actually in okay shape in this spot. I mean, if you know your opponent's strategy, I mean, know is in quotation marks here, then you can just play perfectly, right? It's an easy game if you know what your opponent's going to do. Problem is you don't actually know what your opponent's going to do, right? And I highly doubt people are going to call your flop bet, call your turn bet, and call your all in with ace high. It would be quite a terrible play. But if that's the case, you should now be value betting very, very thinly. When there's a spot where 30% of the time you jam your sixes and 70% of the time you're supposed to flat, does that only apply at a certain level with small fields? How do you randomize it? Well, I've already basically told you here how to randomize it. The field size doesn't matter at all. What matters here is just trying to play an implementable strategy across the board. So in this spot, for example, like we see here, 6 is flats, 5 is all in, 4 is all in, 3 is flat, right? Really, I can probably go and tell you that there's some mix going on between like 7, 6s, 5s, 4s, and 3s, if I had to guess. So what I'm saying is that if you just mix it up like this, it's not perfect, but it's way more implementable. Because I can tell you here, if like let's say 7, 6s, 5s, and 4s were the mix that I saw I needed to use, because each hand is, let's say, roughly 75% jam. Well, just do this and you're going to be close enough to right, and no one's really going to ever be in the spot often enough for them to know that you flat with 6s but jam 5s, right? So it's like it just doesn't matter. How do you avoid playing too nitty? Play the ranges we have recommended at pokercoaching.com and then follow the advice we lay out. In the Poker Coaching Cash Game Masterclass especially, go through there. There's a large module on how to play post-flop. It's big. It takes quite a while to get through. It has a lot of practice, but that will help you learn how, basically when to bet and when to check, right? And also at pokercoaching.com, we have the homework challenges. And there, we make you go through every single hand in your range and tell me how you're going to play. Like right here, right? On the flop, if you don't know this, you're probably making a mistake when you're playing. You want to have about 2 draws to every 1 premium made hand on the flop. Notice here, 24% to 12%, 2-to-1 ratio. Also, you want your marginal made hands to be about 70% marginal made hands, 30% junk. We discussed this thoroughly at the Poker Coaching Homework Challenges. And if that's unfamiliar to you, if you don't know how to balance your range, you're going to be making big, big, big mistakes. And it's kind of hard to play too nitty once you actually understand that this is just a puzzle, and you have to figure out where each of the hands lines up in the puzzle. Do I think the World Series will be canceled? I don't know. Again, I'm not a virologist. It's early in the tournament, everyone's deep stacked, 100 big blinds. If someone raises to half X, I don't know what that is, and you have a very strong hand and re-raise, then someone behind you re-raises big, do you fold? If it goes raise, 3-bet, 4-bet, 100 big blinds deep, I'm probably calling 13 big blinds more. So it went 2 big blinds, 6 big blinds, 20 big blinds, or 3 big blinds, 7 big blinds, 20 big blinds. I'm going to be calling in that spot and trying to flop well. And I'm not trying to protect my deep stack. I'm trying to flop sets with a hand like jacks. Do you adjust your situation to protect your stack? To some extent, but I mean, not when you're getting good odds. Notice there I have to put in 10 big blinds to try to win 13 big blinds to try to win 40. So we're already getting great odds right off the bat. And then if I get a jack, I'm going to stack the guy a lot of the time. And sometimes it's just going to go check, and we get to win against ace king. So no, don't make big folds with big hands. You feel like you must need a different type of strategy when you're playing $100 versus $1,700. Is this the case? Well, no, you need to know how to play fundamentally sound and how to adjust to whatever your opponents do wrong. What a lot of people forget about is that they think that their whole job is to learn how to beat one particular type of player. But in reality, your job is to learn how to play well so that you can beat whatever player is sat in front of you, because you never know who you're going to be against. And then also, the buy-in level changes a ton, because there are some $500 that are super soft, and then there's some $500 that are tournaments that are super tough. Same thing for $10,000 buy-in tournaments. Some of them are super soft, some of them are super tough. And if you think that every player and every player pool and every specific buy-in level is exactly the same, you're going to be making egregious blunders. Now, I was talking just the other day to a student about how you should be paying attention to general player pool tendencies, but it's not just how does all of the recreational players play in this player pool. It's like, how do the nitty recreational players play? How do the maniacal recreational players play, right? So you have to figure out how to adjust to beat each specific type of opponent. Brian says, you were in Disney World last weekend and they had a record number of visitors. People are receiving emails about how they're cleaning more often, et cetera, et cetera. So you just imagine the casinos will be hurting, especially Wind Creek, the old sands in Philadelphia. Okay. I was in Vegas a week ago. It was business as usual, but I hear that that's not the case anymore. Are you comfortable? If you're sitting in the top 5 going into the bubble, what's the best strategy? Raise frequently. Probably don't call if people want to put their money in. You're reading Modern Poker Theory. You're 200 pages in. You probably have one of the first editions of the book if you're saying that there are some slight issues. That happens with books. Believe it or not, it's very, very difficult to get a 500-page book full of graphs and charts to have everything exactly accurate. But you probably have a first edition if you want. For all the D&B poker books, by the way, if you go to dnbpoker.com, navigate to that book's page, if there are updates from the very first version, we always make the updates in the second printing. The way book publishing works is you print a small number at the beginning, and then usually you get back some feedback about what's wrong with them, because inevitably there's going to be some stuff wrong with them. And then you release an errata on the site that lists everything that's wrong with it, and then you update the next version of the book. So that's that. Any ETA on the masterclass, the tournament masterclass? No, I thought I was going to work on it a lot this week, but it turns out life has been hectic. I had a webinar to do today. Here we are. But ETA, if I had to guess, probably within 2 months. Is it a mistake to jam ace-king suited from late position after an open for 20 big blinds? No. Calling's fine too, though. Let's go over here to the chart, right? Let's take a look. Well, these charts aren't actually what we need. You need to go to the chart section in pokercoaching.com, follow that, and you'll be good to go. Do we have a feature where you can play against other students? Not at the moment, but we are actually currently working to find a solution to that. That said, if you're in America and you don't have very many good options, I would suggest you put some tiny amount of money into one of the unregulated sites and play there with the idea that you're playing there to practice. Or get some of your friends together and play on one of these free poker apps and make like a home game and then play on that for fun with your friends. Brian says, you enjoyed my $1,000 buy-in review the other day. Well, good. Thank you. You're very welcome. It's good to watch pros go over their games. Yeah, I had Michael Acevedo, the GTO expert, go through my play the other day in a deep run that I made in a $1,000 buy-in online tournament, and it was good. He found some things that I did slightly wrong, and that's good. It's good to have those things reiterated to you, because sometimes you even may know what you do wrong, right? Like one of the things I know that I was doing wrong, probably just purely for comfort, is folding hands that don't seem to have much of future potential on the flop immediately, like king high with a very bad backdoor draw or something. Like I'll check the flop, the opponent will bet. Very often you are supposed to be calling kind of wide in that spot. And sometimes I would just fold immediately, recognizing that like maybe this is a barely profitable call, but I'm going to have a really tough time playing it on the turn in the river. And, GTO strategies to stick around. And when you're playing against the best players in the world, I mean, my opponents in that tournament were like number 1 through number 20 online. So literally the best players in the world and me. You probably need to play as close to GTO as you can. That said, we still had a great week. We won about $45,000 that week in 4 days, playing high stakes online tournaments, so that was fun. Am I going to Canada to play the biggest Sunday Million ever? No. I have a wife and 2 kids, and I have all of you who I have to take care of, and that results in me not traveling to play various online tournaments. But whenever I do travel, it's usually to something like the Party Poker Live series that I went to just recently, and I try to put in a lot of volume, both live and online, when that happens. Congrats on my Global Poker League award, or my Global Poker Index Award. Thank you. I won Poker Personality of the Year. You all helped me get that. I appreciate that. You all voted for me, and now I am the Poker Personality of the Year for this year. We've been in the top 4 the last 2 years, well, last 3 years total, and then we won this year, so thank you all very much for making that happen. We'll have a video blog coming out about that in the very near future, I think, assuming the content's good enough. All right, we got through all of your questions. Thank you all very much for submitting those. Again, if you want to get a solid discount at pokercoaching.com and get access to tons of content that will keep you busy improving your skills, head over to pokercoaching.com/lucky. We have live play and explain videos. Just the other day, I was playing cash games. On Party Poker, and I actually recorded, 4 or 6 hours of myself just playing small to medium stakes cash games online, because that's something you all requested me to do. And we actually had great sessions every single time. And yes, we have that. We have lots of stuff at pokercoaching.com. I don't know if I mentioned this, but if you go and sign up at pokercoaching.com/lucky, if you do not like it within 30 days, let me know. Tell me that you didn't learn anything, you don't think it's a value for you, and we'll give you a refund. If I do not add a substantial amount of value to your life and to your poker skills, I do not deserve to get paid. I know there's a lot of training sites out there that want to charge you loads of money up front. Like there's some out there that are $1,500, $5,000, etc. And well, they're not going to give you a refund, and they're not going to answer your emails, and they're not going to answer your questions. So I'm here for you. I want to make you the best poker player you can be. If you all sent me emails, you know that we do a pretty good job of replying to them, and I do my best to help my students succeed. And we're releasing fresh new content on a very regular basis. So we're here for you, and we're not going anywhere. That's one of my pet peeves, I think, is I see people put out a piece of content, sometimes a good piece of content, and then they just kind of disappear. They put it out, they sell it for $2,000, and people try to ask them questions, they don't answer. People try to get a refund because maybe it doesn't help them, they won't answer, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not what we're doing here. I'm here for you, and if I don't add substantial value to your life, I do not deserve your money, and I don't want your money because I didn't help you, right? If I don't help you, I don't deserve it. Is there going to be another Survivor game like I was on? So funny enough, I actually had 1 second on my favorite TV show, Survivor. There was a Survivor game put on by Poker Night in America that I got invited to because they knew I liked Survivor, and somehow I was on the TV show Survivor on CBS for 1 second. Maybe I'll actually be on Survivor one day. That would be fun. Is there a subscription-based model? Yeah, you can sign up for a subscription at pokercoaching.com if you do not sign up for the 1-year plans or longer. What is my email? Support@pokercoaching.com. Send an email, support@pokercoaching.com, and if it's a support question, it'll be directed to the support team. If it's a poker question, it'll be directed to me. People send me lots of questions about lots of things. I'm not going to answer your question about billing or something, but if you have poker questions, I will definitely address them. All right, that's going to be it for today. Again, if you want an extreme discount to pokercoaching.com, head over to pokercoaching.com/lucky right now. If you like this video, if you're watching this on YouTube a little bit later, click like, click subscribe. I would definitely appreciate it. And get out there, have fun, make the most of these trying times in the world. All we can do is do our best, cooperate, and be nice to one another. Good luck, have fun, and I will talk to you next time.